Hello, welcome to the video how to configure single sign-on with Okta. Note, before to start, I recommend you to set up your My Domain. This is located going to Setup, and in the quick find box type My Domain. In this section, you'll be able to configure your My Domain. In my case, it's already done. So let's get started with the steps. The first thing is login as an admin in your Okta portal. Once in Okta, hover the mouse in the Application menu and select Application. Now, click on the Add Application button. Search for Salesforce and select Salesforce.com integration. Click on the Add button and let's start with the general settings. In the application label, you can give it any name that will be shown in the home page. In this case, I'll leave Salesforce.com. On the instance type, depending on your environment, select the corresponding one. In my case, will be production. In your custom domain, type your My Domain. Please note, if your domain is acme.my.salesforce.com, you'll need just to enter acme. If I go back to My Domain in Salesforce, I'll just need this portion. Now, user profile and type, select standard Salesforce user and leave the remain settings as default. Click on Next. Now, let's have a look into the sign-on options. In the sign-on method, select SAML 2.0. At this point, let's go back to Salesforce and configure the single sign-on settings. After that, we'll come back to this step. In Salesforce, go to Setup. In the quick find box, type single sign-on settings. Activate SAML enable in case that is unchecked. And after that, click on the new button in the SAML single sign-on settings section. Give it a name to these single sign-on settings. And the rest of the mandatory fields will be taken from Okta. The first one is issuer. Go back to Okta one more time and click on View Setup Instructions. Click on the Configure SAML topic and scroll down to the Step 6. Copy the issuer value that is showing at your site. In my case, I'll copy this string, go back to the single sign-on settings, and paste it on issuer. Go back to the documentation again and download the Identity Provider Certificate by clicking on this URL. On the single sign-on settings, search for the downloaded certificate. Next field is the Identity Provider login URL. Copy the login URL and paste it here. Then, copy the custom logout URL and paste it here. In the entity ID, type your My Domain. If you haven't configured My Domain, type saml.salesforce.com. In my case, I'll use My Domain. Please note HTTPS should be at the beginning. Finally, in the SAML identity type, I'm going to authenticate user by checking the Federation ID field, which is located in the user object. So I'm going to select the option Assertion contains the Federation ID from the user object. However, if you want to authenticate users by checking their username, keep the default option enabled. So that's it. I'm gonna save the changes. Now, under the Endpoint section, copy the login URL and come back to the Okta portal. And under Advanced Sign-On settings, paste the login URL. Leave the credential details as default and save the changes. Now, let's go back to Salesforce one more time, specifically to My Domain. Once you refresh the page, click on Edit under Authentication Configuration. You'll notice the new single sign-on settings will show up. Mark the checkbox and save the changes. Now, there are two remaining steps. The first one, I need to provide me access to the Salesforce application from Okta. So click on the Assignments option click on Assign, and click on Assign either people or groups. In my case, I'm going to assign myself. Click on Assign, and click on Save and go back. Done. And there you go. I just gained access right now to the Salesforce application in Okta. The last step is to make sure that I have the Okta username in my Federation ID in order to the authentication matches. So let's go to Salesforce. In the Quick Find Box, type user. Open my user record. Click on Edit. Scroll down to the single sign-on information, and on the Federation ID, paste the Okta username. Save the changes. Now, let's see how the single sign-on is working. I open a private session. If I go to My Domain, you'll notice the single sign-on Okta option is available at the bottom. So click on it. Now, I'm gonna type my Okta credentials and click on Sign In. There you go. You can see I successfully logged in into Salesforce by using Okta. Now, I'm gonna show you the second way to access Salesforce. Click on Logout. And if you notice, I was redirected to my Okta portal, where here it will show up all my applications. So now, if I try this way, I'm redirected to Salesforce as well. This concludes the video how to configure single sign-on with Okta. Thank you for watching.